to do it in a masjid, you can do it at home, you can do it at any place. That's it. That's how simple marriage is in Islam, brothers and sisters. Now, the practicalities of marriage, inshallah, this is, I think, more important to talk about this and talk about the kind of, the theoretical or the abstract concepts of marriage. Because I think the practicalities are the issues which affect most brothers and sisters. How do you practically go about getting married? You want to get married, what do you need to think about? I think these are some of the things that you need to consider, first of all. If you're serious about marriage, first of all, you need to think about, are you in a position to marry? Don't let your shahwa carry you away. Don't let your desire get you, take you away and you start thinking about marriage, but then practically you can't get married. So think about it practically, whether you're in a position to get married or not. That's the first thing. Can you afford it? Yes, when I'm talking about cost, I mean simple things. When you get married, you're not just providing for yourself, you have a wife to provide for. Are you in a position to provide for a wife or not? And that is her right. Once you get married, you have to provide for your wife her living expenses, her accommodation, those things she needs on a day-to-day basis. You are responsible for providing, not her parents once she's married. Are you in a position to do so? And again, I don't want you to think about, luxurious or extravagant living. Simple things. It doesn't really, brothers, to live today, it doesn't really cost very much. But many people, they have very extravagant lifestyles, very expensive lifestyles. And really, a lot of people, they waste a lot of money in terms of how they live, what they eat. I think just recently I read that, a huge amount of food is thrown away in people's homes. They throw it away. They buy it and they throw it away. And many people, most of their money goes on food. So if you are someone who lives reasonably within the bounds of Sharia, really it doesn't cost very much to live simply. And simple living is what Islam encourages us. Simple living is what we're encouraged under Islam. No extravagance. So that's the first question you need to think about. Can you afford the cost of marriage? The mahar. If a sister demands a dowry, are you able to afford it? And again, the dowry doesn't have to be very much. It can be very simple. I know of people who married for very small amounts, and I've heard of people who married for very large amounts. But the best marriage, the Prophet said, is the one that is simplest, where the dowry is minimal, where the mahar is minimal. So it's something that you have to give to the woman. If she demands £500, that's her right. If you agree to it, you have to give it to her. If she accepts £100, then alhamdulillah, be happy. And, you have to give it to her. Accommodation. This is one of the biggest issues, not just for people who want to get married, even for married people. And if you want to get married, and you're living with parents, as I imagine most of you students, unmarried students probably are, or living in hostels, and you think, how can I marry? I don't have a place of my own. There's nothing to prevent you from marrying and living with your parents. You living at home, she's living at home, no problem with that. Until you're in a position to afford your own accommodation. Or, if your parents are happy with it, and your family is happy with it, she moving in to your house. Again, you have to think about the practicalities of that as well. You may have a single bedroom that you're living in, on a single bed. But when you have a wife, are you going to fit a double bed into your room or not? I mean, these are, common sense things, brothers and sisters. But, sometimes people get carried away and they don't think about these things. Are you in a position now to live together as a couple? Can you live together in your own home as a couple or not? What about the brothers? The brother-in-laws. What about the extended family? How will you interact? So all of those things are key issues. And I'm not saying this to put people off, I'm saying so that you think realistically. And that, you put this into your mind so that inshallah you can look at practical ways of, practical solutions. So accommodation, where will you live? Will your wife be happy to live with you? With the in-laws? I know sisters have a big fear of living with the in-laws, and sometimes rightly so. But it's rightly so. And also sisters, if you're realistic about getting married, you have to accept that many brothers are not in a position to afford their own accommodation. Seriously, those of you who know, the housing market today is practically impossible to buy a house unless you go take a mortgage. And you can't even get a mortgage unless you earn a certain amount. Renting, subhanAllah, renting a 1-bedroom flat, you know how much it costs? A good property will cost you, probably about £500-600 a month. Right? So it's not cheap. So sisters, you have to be realistic. If you want to get married, don't demand that the brother, has his own accommodation, has his own place. Otherwise, really, you're putting many brothers, you're kind of making it very difficult for many brothers to marry. And you yourself will suffer because many brothers will not come forward because they're not in a position to get accommodation. And that's probably the biggest expense that people have. I do personally advise people, if you're in a position to get your own accommodation, then do it. That is the best solution. Because you have that privacy, you have the intimacy, to develop your relationship and to get away from others. That is the ideal solution. But it's not practical for many, many brothers. That until you start kind of, earning, and then maybe, I don't know, we may consider some of the Islamic mortgages, which are very dubious. But anyway, you may consider them and you may get your property one day, but then by that time you may be, in your late 30s or 40s, and it's a long wait. So practically, sisters, brothers and sisters, this is a matter you have to consider. You have to live with your family sometimes as married couple, and you have to do, there's no other easy way out. So accommodation, living expenses, simple things of shopping and clothes and so on. How will you provide that for your wife? You may have a part-time job, which is sufficient. Alhamdulillah, I know a brother, he's serious about marriage. He has a part-time job. Alhamdulillah, he can afford to marry. Yes? But if you have no income at all, and your father is providing for you, giving you pocket money, right? Is your father going to carry on giving you pocket money so you can support your wife as well? Now seriously, you have to discuss this with your families. Yeah, if your family, if your parents are happy to support you and your wife, alhamdulillah, good and well. But if they're not, then you have to consider taking a part-time job as a student, so that you can, meet those basic needs. And as I said again, the costs are not, huge. It's very simple, really. You can survive on minimal amounts if you live, inshallah, if you live a simple life. And when I say simple life, it doesn't mean you have to, you're eating scraps every day and you're wearing rags. No, it means that, you live within your means. Many people, subhanAllah, and this is something that is a topic in itself as well today, Western society is kind of, their consumerism really is destroying the world today. You go to Tesco, you see so many varieties of, cornflakes, for example. You think, choice is good, but at what cost? All this choice that we have, it's at a cost to others in the world today. And really we are part of the problem of the rest of the world that is suffering as a result of Western consumerism. The amount that they consume really is destroying the rest of the world. And all of us as Muslims, we also living in this society, we are contributing towards that as well. So when we live simply, in terms of our food, our clothes, our needs, we are in a way helping the rest of society. So simple living is ideal. Also, key thing, living with in-laws. I mentioned this is something that sisters really, really dread, and they do have a right to do so, because many problems in marriage result from in-laws. And this is something that many sisters, first thing they ask is, the brother going to live at home, right? So how will you reconcile living with in-laws? And this is where I think brothers really have a big responsibility to have a clear understanding with your families, that really in your marriage, your extended family should not interfere in your marriage. And many times when marital problems arise, it's because of mother interfering, or the brother-in-law or sister-in-law interfering in the marriage. And many issues, and many times sisters suffer because the brothers are not willing to stand up for the rights of their wives. And I'm not saying this, to make the sisters feel good about it, but it's a fact. Many of the times, brothers are like, quite honestly, mice when it comes to dealing with their own families. and they kind of tolerate